Sevendust. All I see is war. Alright, I was debating on doing this one, and I said, well, due to some certain issues, I said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And, my history, let's see, for me, this is the first album I physically have in my hands from Sevendust. I'm going to say that right now. So LJ and the crew, if you somehow see this, sorry. I mean, the only other thing I would have is a best of set. Again, yeah. And that's how I know most of Sevendust stuff, I guess. Through that. And that's what allowed me to have some level of familiarity starting off doing my research and going into this with following up albums, as in, of course, their first 4 albums with, you know, the self-titled debut, Home, Animosity, Seasons era. And then eventually Next happened, and I'm going to say that was probably, to me, the weakest of their albums. Some might disagree, but it's whatever. Hell, some might even think the album I like is actually considered to be their worst, rather than considered their best, as far as I'm concerned. And Alpha was where it seemed like things were getting better. Like, there was something I wanted, something different out of Sevendust, because it was starting to get to the point where it was starting to feel like the same thing, just nothing really new-ish, whether production or whatever. And it took Chapter 7 for me to get into it. Of course, it helps having good features like Miles Kennedy, Mark Tremonti, a little more guitar than vocals. But this was between Blackbird and AB3, and I think before Full Circle? I'm not, for any of you Crew fans, if I'm not mistaken. So, and also had Chris Daughtry on there too. So, and that was also a great feature. Vocally, it was the better feature. Sorry, Miles. It's the same. I mean, it wasn't your best. They weren't able to utilize you at your best vocally, but with what they gave you, you were good. Oh, and after that, ever since, there was a moment where I believe Clint Lowry had left, and he was one of the primary songwriters. And I guess within Alpha and them, they did some slightly different direction in terms of where they would go songwriting-wise, to the point where Chapter 7 was among those albums, and that's actually one of my better ones. And that album was followed up with Cold Day Memory, the first with Clint back in the band. And ever since that that album prior, they've actually, I don't know if something happened with Lowry, I guess, or something, because I think he's a guitarist, that we all of a sudden started getting more lead work. I don't know if Mark Tremonti had a part in that or what on his feature, but yeah. I'm digging the fact they consistently started doing that, and every other album, though tiresome to some people after Cold Day Memory, I actually still enjoyed what they were doing. Far more than anything they used to do back then. That's the weird thing for me. I never gave them a chance because, you know, all I mostly went off of was their earlier stuff, which is still bad. And I mean, Black is an example of when they can do decent, at least even a decent lead work, and make a good song still. And this album, well, I don't know if I could say it's the weaker, but I don't know if it offers anything more after what they've done with those 2 albums that I preferred to talk about, or 3 actually, given Alpha. Though kind of still in that same spot, but you could tell they were kind of... It seems like they started to their alternative metal style started to dabble in elements of new wave American heavy metal and metalcore, as opposed to new metal. Somehow they flop in between and just kind of mosh together to some extent. Though it seems they kind of go more that melodic metal-ish route at times with an alternative rock feel, I guess. But for the most part, they've kind of been that kind of a hard rock band that if they fringe into metal, it's usually of those calibers of the more new metal, new wave British, new wave American. I don't know why I say British. I hope I didn't say that before. And blah, blah, blah. Now, as far as this album is concerned, they definitely stick with this theme of All I See Is War, and their mission was to make this more like, to bring back what made Sevendust. Sevendust, and they kind of do. But it's not exactly ignoring previous albums, which I was hoping they wouldn't do, given I actually kind of like those albums. Even though Kill the Flaw doesn't really offer anything, their last album, Kill the Flaw, may not have offered as much of anything that they hadn't already done with Blackout the Sun and Cold Day Memory, with Clint, or even with Given Clint. Though I will say they started doing a lot of more scream, growls-y stuff, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. And I still will say, Black is still one of their better songs they've ever written. They've always known how to start off with a good 1-2 punch, and they still kind of do that with Dirty and God Bites His Tongue, but they still manage to hold on with Medicated. For the most part, each song is its own little thing. Kind of still deals with war. You'd think it has some different subject matters, given Medicated, but it seems it still kind of does deal with certain... for the most part, this album still keeps good and momentum, even up till Moments. Not original, I could see why some people were kind of... I didn't mind the song the way it was sung, but once I got into lyrics, it was kind of, yeah, I could see how it'd take you out of the song, given that you're kind of in the viewpoint of a politician who just can't get past his own ego, and is clearly responsible for causing all these problems, yet doesn't care to try, even though he says he does, but in the end he doesn't, and it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad in that regard. I don't know if Descend really follows that up or anything, but Descend has definitely seemed to be a better track. Life Deceives You is not bad. The Truth is definitely, for an album that's called All I See Is War, The Truth really is the heavier song to end this off of, and that's not bad. And so for the most part, I'd have to say this album, I could see why some people would only say it's good, not necessarily great. Definitely something worth looking at if you're a Sevendust fan. I know I'm not the most diehard of them, but I feel like they've never truly could make a great album. I'm going to say that right now, but they can make a good album. And it seems that they always find a way to make albums that are worth talking about. Or at least they do enough to satisfy fans, satisfy its own fan base. And I feel like the people who are fans and have been up to this point, or at least went through their discography at this point, like myself, there's nothing new, but nothing bad in a way. And Next, probably, I will say Next is their weakest. I'm going to just say that flat out right now. To me, it's their weakest. Sadly, I don't know if that was when right on the time Clint had left when that happened or what, but that was definitely weak. And it seemed like they followed those, at least Alpha, I felt like, should have been the follow-up to Seasons, as opposed to Next. Next just feels like just a slight bump in the back in a bad discography, but with me, as far as I'm concerned, Medicated, I feel like, I don't know if it's dealing with a soldier trying to recover sickness. Cheers is kind of is anything but cheery, but it sort of deals with someone trying to cope with PTSD, I guess, or something. Sickness kind of does in terms of just the sense of being medicated, being just the numbing of it all. From news outlets and stuff with the war, and just to the point where we just become so used to it that we don't feel anything about it at all. And with all the things we have in countries like first world ones that are so luxurious to some extent, that we are that we've found a way to numb ourselves from all this stuff that's been going on out there, and also yet simultaneously on all those two things, maybe dealing with issues of just drug addiction, kind of, I guess. Something of that nature, or at least someone dealing with PTSD to the point where he has to rely on drugs to cope, or, you know, us vicariously just using other things to kind of cope with dealing with things instead of doing some things like these wars, instead of doing something about it. Something of that nature. But overall, despite how I may come across, I do enjoy this record for what it is, as a Sevendust album, and for what the theme is. Though it does kind of, not original, I'm okay with listening to, even though it's clearly one of the weaker tracks and one that is harder to relate to, and kind of clearly deals with, and it's, despite its sound, it's very deceiving, just like the individual, that, like, it's trying to deceive you into relating to that individual, but it isn't. I don't know why they chose not original, really. I honestly feel like they should have chosen tracks like Moments or something else. That would have been better than not original, but I still don't mind the track for what it is, I guess. But overall, guys, Sevendust, All I See Is War. You get a thumbs up, man. You get a thumbs up from me. But it seems that's all I can give. Or even for any other album. The closest to rock I could give, to just rock I could give for you, was the Chapter 7 and possibly Cold Day Memory, but that's all I can say. I liked some of the ideas and some of the creative things they kind of did in the earlier years, but I felt they needed to find a way to stray away from what they were as nu metal, as being lumped into nu metal, and I feel like those records did the trick. And they've been able to hold on to those, what they did with that ever since, but also they found a way to do what they've been doing previously, while simultaneously still kind of bringing in some ideas of what they used to do back then, during those first 4 albums, and find a perfect, as good a balance as you possibly can get, just not in the way I would have liked, but more likely I was afraid it would go straight up into what they used to do, instead of sticking with what they had been doing, which I preferred, and they managed to find enough of a balance to where it's more what they still have been doing, rather than what they used to do, but they do enough of what they used to do that it's still enough that they don't ignore their roots, which is nice. And in that sense, this is a good Sevendust album. Thumbs up. Still worthwhile. What did you guys think of it, man? Of All I See Is War from Sevendust. You can comment below, let me know. You can even do so on Facebook, on my Facebook page. Where rock for that and this video. Rock that like button with thrust if you must. Please hit the bell once you've subscribed, because it's in order to get any notifications. That's the only way you'll ever get to see this video. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you all in the next video, which might be Deadpool 2, hopefully, but because if not, it seems like something's happened to the YouTube thing. I'm hopefully not be able to upload this one. But we'll see what happens. Until then, I guess, take care, y'all.